Alright, so going to be out here planting the main brassica plots on the farm today. I got 3 separate areas of no-till buckwheat that I'm going to be putting in today, and then there's a wetter field that I've just been spraying the weeds off. It was too wet to get corn planted, too wet to get any buckwheat established in there. I'll probably plant that next weekend. That might be a different video. Probably won't be this video. But anyways, over there in that, I got a horseshoe or a U shape of corn. And right in the center of that is buckwheat. So pretty much putting in the usual. I put in Whitetail Institute wintergreens for many years now. I know a lot of people bash on the seed coating, like, oh, that's just a cheap filler, but it's really nice to be able to see the seed on the ground when you just kind of like broadcasting by hand with the seeder. You can kind of get a feel for checking, spot checking and seeing if you're too thick or too thin on the seeding rate. And then I'm mixing in some tillage radish. And then last year I used some of this stuff from Domain. It's got a couple different varieties. Basically about 50% kale, trophy rape, and it's got some of this purple kohlrabi. And just mixing some of that, and you can see obviously all those black seeds are that wingman mix. So pretty heavy on the tillage radish. This is about the earliest I'd want to plant the tillage radish because they always, mature and grow faster. I think it's July 20th today. We got a perfect day to seed. We got like rain chances practically every day this upcoming week, so I know we're gonna get rain at least 1 or 2 of the days. So I'll get over there and start seeding. That stuff's about almost chest high in there. So here is what I'll be seeding. Pretty much right in the middle of this plot. It's probably the best soil in this whole food plot right down here. It goes up to the hill that way, and a little bit sandier back there where I parked. This stuff's all about chest, almost head high, like literally a lot of this is 5 foot tall. You can see there is still some broadleaf weeds in here, so I'm sure some of this stuff will survive after I crush it all and spray it all later today. But yeah, the honeybees are on this stuff like crazy. It's always a shame to kill all this stuff because pollinators are just loving this right now. But this is the time to get in here before it goes out to seed. And obviously with rain coming, I got to get these brassicas in. So yeah, this should be a nice little secluded. This whole field is pretty much secluded with this tree line here, but with this corn, it'll really help shrink this down, and maybe they'll feel extra safe right in here with the corn screening and everything. So yeah, we'll get seed in here. A couple butterflies out there. So we'll just check one random spot here. I just seeded the whole thing. You can see with those colored seeds, it's really nice to be able to see the seed and check your seeding rate. If anything, it's a little bit thick, but I know last year when I did this plot, or pretty much all my areas last year were a little bit on the thin side, which is probably better than a little bit on the thick side. This is plenty thick. 2 seeds there, seed right there. Like I've said in the past, you want to shoot for roughly 1 to 3 at the most plants per square foot on these brassica plots if you want them to get, anywhere close to knee high. So it's plenty thick. If anything, I could cut back my seeding rate a little bit on the next plot or so, just a little bit. But really, when you're putting it in, it hardly feels like you're cranking out any seed, and that's what you want. Brassicas are by far the easiest thing to overseed. So, especially planting, in mid to late July. If you were planting in mid-August, you could probably get away with planting it a little thicker, because the plants aren't going to get as big. They're not going to have as much time to grow, obviously. And I am going to come back through here and throw in a couple soybeans in all these areas. I'm doing the Brassicas today like a super light rate, just for a candy crop. And you know, if the deer don't browse them super bad, they'll probably stay green, obviously, all the way till we get a frost. So they'll just kind of add more attraction to this little spot down in here. All right, so this right here is the next plot. This is that plot that I've planted for many years. Wraps around a lot of these trees back here. Surprisingly, right underneath this walnut tree, look at how good the soybeans look. And the buckwheat's amazing, just as tall as the other spot. And everything seems to grow pretty fine right around all these trees, although I am going to take out a couple of these trees next spring, I think, just to, you know, make this spot long term a little bit better before these trees get any bigger. But yeah, this will all be brassicas. Yeah, so I got this spot and one other spot to show you. And with this like this odd shaped food plot with these trees, there's always been quite a bit of daylight activity in this back corner right here. And then to improve this section, I put some corn for screening, and then I got a little circle right here that'll be brassicas. This is all the buckwheat right here. That way these deer can come out, and they can't really, as of right now, who knows when the corn dries down, you'll be able to see through it easier, but you can't really see all the way out there. So see, they got a trail busted through the buckwheat right here. And this is all NutriCrave corn. I've had pretty good luck with the NutriCrave, with the deer not eating on it and ripping the stalks down, where the field corn, for whatever reason, must taste better to them. They always beat the heck out of it and silk all the cobs and eat the leaves when the corn's growing, and it ends up being a pretty patchy wall, and you can see right through it. But this stuff, they pretty much leave alone. And it's all going to actually produce ears. Some of these plants in here got two years starting on them. So not only is it going to provide a little bit of a screen here, it's only like, you know, 4 to 5 rows wide, but it's actually going to provide some food here for them too, where in the past I've had the field corn here and they just, like I said, they just destroy it, and there's hardly any cobs in there then. The soybeans, like I said, look pretty amazing, so I might put soybeans in the back side here next year to rotate, because I've had brassicas here for a couple years now. But the buckwheat is kind of a rotational crop as well, along with all the other weeds that come up. Alright, so here's the third and final spot of buckwheat I'll be seeding today. You can see this buckwheat doesn't look nearly as good. This is the wettest out of all 3 spots I just showed you. Definitely more weeds in here too, but thankfully not a ton of water hemp. I mean, there is some in here, I guess. It's just smaller than the ragweeds and velvets. Quite a bit of grass in here, which is kind of surprising. Usually it's just broadleafs. But this will probably be the worst turnout out of all 3. Up there, it's a little bit drier. You can see the buckwheat's noticeably bigger and thicker there, and less weeds up there as well. Going down this way, it almost completely got choked out, the buckwheat. Down there, I don't see hardly any white flowers. So we'll seed this, and then I'll get some time lapses and videos of crushing all of this. All right, that looks pretty good. took a while to smash down that far end. There was a lot of weeds down there. The weeds like to spring back up. I've said it in the past and I'll say it again. Driving around multiple times like that, it actually sets the seed in the soil, because this whole area was all worked up. This isn't like true no-till, but it's no-till Brassica. But I tilled this whole area when I planted the corn, the soybeans, and the buckwheat, so it's all pretty loose soil underneath all of this. So just driving around in here a couple times, I mean, it literally lightly fluffs up like the top quarter to half inch of soil just by turning around in here in a couple areas and just going over it multiple times. So probably a good portion of this seed is actually in the soil, like at the perfect depth. Like I don't see many seeds here. Here's a soybean, there's a Brassica seed, but this is like kind of simulating no-till drill. I mean, there's a lot of seed in here that's probably set perfect, like an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch deep. But yeah, there is some on top, which is fine. As long as we get rain, these small seeds will germinate just fine. But even if it was drier, like this soil is a little bit damp, and it sets a lot of this seed perfect. So this is an unbelievable way to plant brassicas. I mean, this is the only way that I can end up with relatively pretty clean brassica plots out here. Otherwise, I'm just tilling up a weed fest if I try to till and plant brassicas. So yeah, let's hit the next 2 plots out there. Alright, so it's been a while. This will be the first and probably only update of these 3 Brassica sections. I'm in the 3rd spot out here closer to the hill, but I'll take you to all 3 of these areas and show you what they look like here. So this was that small section with the corn screening walls. You can see all the old buckwheat right here, dead and decomposed. We do have some weed pressure coming in. Whatever this is the main weed problem. But overall, brassicas look pretty good out in here, away from the shade. I did come in here last weekend and seeded this whole, pretty much all 3 of these brassica sections with winter rye. We got a light rain. I saw some of it coming up in the shade here where it would have held better moisture. I don't know if I'm going to get much rye to come up in here. Here's some of it right here. Seeded that last weekend, but I don't even think I'm going to really need it because these brassicas are coming in really good. And like I said, I did put in a few soybean plants just for some summer food, summer browse. I mean, they'll stay green until we get a frost. But it looks like the deer have probably thinned out most of them. I was in here a couple weeks ago and there was noticeably more soybeans in here. You can see they're starting to eat on even some of these brassicas. This is pretty early for me to see brassicas eating on. You can see all these weeds, this water hemp, and even the lamb's quarters. There's deer browse on pretty much everything that's green growing in here. So yeah, looks pretty good. It could look better though. Like I said, we do have some weeds that survived. I should probably you know, mix in some Liberty next year. That would help kill off some of these broadleaf weeds when I do this. You can see we got some turnips already starting. Trying to put on a bulb. And I got these brassicas pretty well spaced out. There'll be some pretty big bulbs in here because, you know, they're not too crowded. Maybe some of the areas are a little bit thick, but it looks pretty good. Here's a soybean. Yeah, just a ton of browse, even on the weeds. Right here's some more browse. I don't know if we just got more deer now, or they're just starting to like these brassicas. I think it's more deer because I never really see this kind of browse on my brassicas. I mean, it's barely September. You know, it's early September right now. Wow, they pulled out that radish, or that turnip. I think this was a turnip. A couple buckwheat plants in here. That's interesting. Some of this stuff might have had viable seed on it. All these areas, just tiny little sections. But it's good to have, you know, greens, grain, soybeans on the other side of this corn. I got a nice little clover plot on top of the hill up there that looks fantastic. So I got clover, brassicas, rye, corn, soybeans, late planted soybeans, just everything in here for them, all within 1 acre. All right, so here we are. This is what I call the black walnut food plot because of this big walnut tree right here. Surprisingly, look at the soybeans. When they were greener, they were almost close to thigh high right underneath this tree. There's walnuts falling in the field here. These brassicas look a little bit dry here because they are closer to this tree. I guess there's a cedar here and stuff, but I've actually grown pretty okay crops right underneath some of these walnuts. But some of these ones over here I'm going to thin out next spring to just keep this plot a little bit more, give it a little bit more sunlight, because it's starting to go downhill compared to what I was able to grow in here, you know, like 3 to 5 years ago. Same thing over here. I got some brassicas getting nipped on. Got late planted beans all scattered throughout here. Wow, look at that. They're actually trying to throw on some flowers. I didn't expect them to do anything except stay green till frost. Same thing in here. I got winter rye coming up. Seeded all this, you know, a week ago. Looks like we got a better take over here because it's a little bit shadier, and this ground here is a little bit more moist, which is good because a lot of these brassicas down here got flooded out when we had basically a 5-inch rainfall event within 24 hours, and we probably got close to 6 or 7 inches in like a 3-day time period. So these brassicas all on this lower end here, I'm sure there was standing water in here, it killed them all. It's good that I got this rye in here. It's gonna fill in all these gaps. I guess there is some brassicas down in here. These will continue to grow. I mean, look at how this is complete nothing right here but rye coming up. Looking really good. Like I said, it wraps around and it's kind of a neat little spot back in here. But this back corner and all this stuff, I gotta thin out. I gotta get rid of some of these trees, maybe all of them. And I was thinking about maybe just planting some fruit trees in here and seeing how they do. But long term, it'll help this spot long term to definitely get rid of some of these trees. But it'll definitely be more open then. You can see some of these areas, the brassicas, I don't think they got quite flooded out here. I just probably didn't put enough seed down or something. but it's good I got the rye in here. It'll fill all this in nice. I'm not seeing a ton of soybeans in here. I mean, I'm sure they've been hammering them once they found them. It was about 2 weeks after planting. I could have took an update, and it was just like solid soybeans. I threw a ton of soybeans in here, and you can see the ones that are in here have just been nipped 4 or 5 times, every single one of them. So they're doing their job, they're doing their purpose. You know, they're obviously way more attractive right now than my soybeans out there. They're starting to dry down. They're still green out here. Same thing here. I got some corn for screening. This is all the NutriCrave. I just love how the deer don't really touch this stuff all summer long, because last year in that other plot I was just in, and this plot, I had some field corn in here for screening, and during the summertime the deer just came in here and they just ate on all the leaves and just stunted this corn so bad. You could see right through it. It wasn't even a screen, didn't even produce much for ears. But this stuff, for whatever reason, doesn't taste as good. They don't eat on the green leaves, and the stuff can actually grow up and produce a crop. I mean, we got really good ears in here. I mean, and this is just nothing for space. This is like probably 1/10 of an acre of corn. It's ridiculously small, and to be able to grow a crop like this in such a small spot, just mainly to provide extra structure and extra screening, and now I got it to grow good, it's going to provide extra food with all these ears in here. Obviously this looks really good. Just huge ears. So it's really interesting how they don't touch the NutriCrave as much during the summertime, but I'd say once it gets to the winter, it's pretty much equal. Maybe actually slightly less attraction, because it's usually quite a bit taller corn as well. Anyways, yeah, seeing quite a bit of browse in this plot. Every year it seems like I'm getting more and more browse on the Brassicas early like this. Probably could be due to a slightly growing deer population in the area, but anyways, I'll take you over to that third and final spot. All right, so here we are on the last spot. Same thing, I seeded a bunch of rye in here. You see the turkeys have been scratching around. I think they've been eating some of the seed, and this is pretty hard, drier ground here. You can see a lot of this stuff didn't really germinate, didn't get quite enough rain, probably only 1/10 of an inch or so since I seeded this. And this is the plot that probably did the worst. You can see that far side over there all flooded out during that big rain event. But this is some pretty good dirt up in here, and these brassicas probably look the best out of all 3 spots. Full sun out here too, obviously. Here's a golf ball sized turnip. That'll probably be like a softball by the end of the summer. Got some browse in here as well. Probably I'm seeing less browse in here compared to the other 2 plots. So this is a little, I would say, further away from bedding. Ton of browse on these soybeans right here. When you go up into the plot, they look much better. There's a ton of food out here. I guess there is quite a bit of rye still in here, so it might germinate yet if we get another rain in the next week or so. We'll see. But yeah, this far half over here was pretty weedy buckwheat. The buckwheat was pretty stunted, and because it had kind of got flooded. The buckwheat almost got flooded out, and the buckwheat didn't do good, so a lot of weeds came in, and obviously didn't get the greatest kill on these weeds, and they're coming back. There is some brassica down here. It does have, you know, now that it's dried out better, it's got almost a month yet of growing, so it might, some of these plants down here might get shin high. We'll see. But that's why I put the rye and everything down here. You can see some of this rye's coming up, probably like where a deer stepped on it and pushed some of the seed in. Yeah, right here, right in a deer track, right where they stepped. Anyways, I got definitely more brassica videos to get out. This was probably actually some of the latest brassicas I planted. I got brassicas on 2 other properties. I got to get some of those videos out. but this will be the first one uploaded. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. I know I've been doing the same method for many years now, and it's still by far the best way for me to get weed-free plots. If it was drier, the buckwheat would have did better from the beginning. Like, this is a pretty wet area. This is too wet for even a, you know, most farmers to farm, because it's always wet in this corner right here. But up there it looks beautiful. You can see the soybeans in here are actually doing pretty good. Here's a couple of them ones I put in. I think this plot I had the least amount of. I barely had enough to do anything in here. I used most of them up on the first two plots. And these beans in here actually not getting browsed too heavily. So yeah, we'll get some more Brassica videos out here probably in the next couple weeks. So I might do a final update of everything, get some drone footage. I might not, of all my summer, spring plots, corn and beans.